Good evening, everyone. John Henry Soto here, along with George Batista. As always, welcome to Counterparts. Um, Welcome. My gosh, what can I say? How you doing, George?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. And of course, as always, I'm very thankful to be with you
Thank you
today.
very much. I paid him to say that. Um, my cousin.
Yes.
So we are excited. We have Christine Blanchette is going to be on the show today, and she has this awesome company called Run With It Fitness Entertainment, and she interviews these amazing. I'm not gonna, because you know how I go. I'll
Yes.
start the show before we start the show, but please stay tuned because we're gonna have a great conversation. So hang on tight, and we'll be right back. I hate when I do that because I start the show before the show, and I start, and I'm like, well, let's just wait, John.
You get you know patience, John.
I,
Come
I
on, we'll
just
get
don't have a
into it.
lot of it. I don't
Yeah,
have a
I
lot of it.
see. I
But
know.
I'm working on that. I'm working on that. All right. Well, as I mentioned, Christine Blanchette is going to be on the show today. We're going to have a fantastic show. We're going to talk about fitness. We're going to talk about running. We're going to talk about interviewing. She interviews some great people, and she's a great interviewer herself. So we're going to be kind of all in this world together, which is very exciting. So, George, before we start, I know we have some love we got to give. So why don't you give some love to our sponsor?
First of all, I love you, John. Just want to let you know that. As we're giving love out here.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, aside from John, we always know that the Counterpart Show is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family owned and operated nutritional supplement company providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. Find out why Wellness Resources supplements are the top choice of health conscious individuals around the world, including yours truly. Make sure you go to myvitaminresource.com to check out all the supplements that they have to offer. And today is the last day to take part in their sale. So their sale is 25% off their heart healthy supplements. So make sure you take advantage of that. And if you enter the promo code Counterparts, you will get free shipping on top of the 25% off. But remember, today's the last day. So again, go to myvitaminresource.com and check them out. All right. Let's talk a little bit about our guest today. We are very excited to have Christine Blanchette today. And just a little bit about her. Christine is a nationally published health and fitness writer, TV host, producer, and avid runner. Her show called Run With It features interviews with health and fitness professionals, athletes, and celebrities, and highlights subjects ranging from proper nutrition to training for marathons. She also hosts another show called The Closing Act, which profiles musicians and other movers and shakers in the entertainment industry. Christine is also a regular contributor for Livid Magazine, NY City, and has written stories for the Seattle Times and a Vancouver Sun. When she isn't busy hosting and writing, she is a running instructor at the University of British Columbia. And I tell you what, we have so much to talk about between fitness, running, artists, acting, musicians. I mean, she does it all, and we're very excited to have her on the program. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Christine Blanchette.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, what a great introduction, and I'm so happy to be here. And thank you so much for having
Oh,
me.
it's definitely our pleasure to have you on here. Like George said, there's just so many elements of our lives, us three, that really just coexist in such
Yeah,
a
right.
in this world. We're very excited to kind of talk to you about how it all started and the just the whole journey that you're on right now, and it's really exciting. So we're very excited, George. I know you have some prepared questions, as you do. We're gonna start with the first one, and then we're gonna rock and roll.
Absolutely. So I kind of dove into, your your TV shows and all the stuff that you've been doing. I watched a lot of your interviews and also your tips on running, which were great, fantastic health and nutrition stuff. So I really, that really caught me, especially because I love that stuff. So I want to know from you, like in the beginning, when you were younger, was health and fitness something that was something that you did when you were young? Was it encouraged by your family? Were you into fitness, or did you kind of get into that later? Because I know you started running, I think, like you became an avid runner, I think, in the late '90s, right?
Yes, and what a
Right. So
great, yeah, what a
was it?
great.
But was it? Yeah. What did you start like early, just in fitness in general, or?
Well, I ran for points, and what I mean by that, my older brother was the real runner.
Oh,
Okay.
His name is John. So
Oh.
he said to me one day, and I think I was in high school, and he says, "Christine, I want you to run for points." And I go, "What do you mean run for points on the track team?" And I thought, okay, why not do it? And little did I know, I showed some talent. So I
Mm.
ran the 400 meters, I ran 200 and cross country, which I love.
wow.
And then it just went from there. And then little did I know, I made it into the zones before the provincials. Like my brother, as I said, was a real runner,
Right.
and we set a high school record for the medley. So one ran 400, which I was the one, and then a 2 and an 8, and I think an 100. But yes,
Wow.
so
Wow. That's so
little did I
cool.
know,
It's incredible.
yeah. And I wasn't
Wow.
really an athlete. I mean, I was
Mhm.
always picked last in basketball because of my height.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Same issue here.
But yeah, and so I did a lot of solo sports like skating and running, as I said.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, so as I said, my brother was a real athlete, the real runner. But then I became one because it was all because of him saying that day,
Yeah.
we need points, go for it.
That's so
Wow.
great. And running is one of those things that well, I'll ask you, what's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have on running?
I think that sometimes people would think, well, it takes time. Well, yes, like any sport takes time.
Right.
But I also think it's a really good opportunity to have solo time. You can run anywhere and it doesn't cost anything. So,
Mhm.
like, I really think that, yes, it does take training and you're going to do some huffing and puffing. There's no
Right.
question
Right.
about it. But the more you do, the better you become. So, practice makes perfect. When I started back in running, I'm thinking, do I really want that? Do I really want to do all that sweating and hot and you're just exhausted? But then,
Right.
like anything in life, you have to work hard and there is a process.
Yeah. It's also a wonderful journey to go through, to see where it started, how difficult it was, and then you persevered and kept going. And at some point, it probably got a little easier, even though it's tougher. It's always has its challenges, but you've overcame that initial, and that's always a gratifying feeling.
Yeah, it is. And I also think, too, that it takes support, it takes people to believe in you and doing the running. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to believe in yourself, like
Yeah.
in anything. And yes, I had some talent, if you will, but I had to work on it. I had
Right.
to find the right coach. I had to find the right support network. And then just by chance, I was doing an interview, a show called West Side Profile, and that's where I met my coach,
Mm.
and he said, "You know what? Let's go for a run." So I fell back in love with running again because I did take a hiatus from high school, right? So,
Right.
so there's a gap from there. Yeah, so I think running, I owe running a lot
Yeah. That's awesome.
because I
That's
wouldn't be
awesome.
talking to you. I
Well, yeah,
wouldn't.
That's true. That's
that's true.
true. Absolutely. No, it's interesting when you find something that really just kind of just takes you, like, for us, when we started in music, and when I
Mhm.
got behind the drums for the first time, I was like, holy cow, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like,
Yeah.
the feeling. And then I'm sure you feel this when you're running. It's like when if I'm, or even when I'm practicing, you kind of, all of a sudden you're it's almost like an out of body experience, right? When you're playing it, all of a sudden you just like, you're almost like you're floating and it becomes effortless. Do you feel that when you're running, especially you kind of get, and then I know they have that runner's high they talk about, but do you feel that when you're doing that?
Oh, absolutely. And it feels so great. It's when I'm in my element. And, I'll be running. And it is like what you said, George, an out of body experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that comes my best lead for a story, or the best questions I'm going to ask my guests.
Yeah.
It just brings everything together.
Yeah.
And, people out there listening and watching, it's the first 5 minutes that I always say to myself when I don't feel like running and it's cold out, because I'm always cold. Then if I can make it out 5 minutes, then I have it. I've overtaken it. Like I can do it. It's just psychological. How our minds are strong. Really, we really are mentally strong. We just need to believe it and do it. And it's a creative arts like music or running. It's like anything in life, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about talent, and then people can be born with talent, and we talk a lot about that on the show. But you still also have to develop that talent and get the skill to really master that. And I think that's one of the things about so many things in art and in just life in general. Someone may have a talent, born naturally with it, but they don't hone it. They don't take responsibility for it. They kind of think like they just have it, but they don't really work on it. It doesn't become, they don't follow that passion. Or maybe it's not a passion. That's another thing too, right? They might have a talent, but then they're not passionate about the talent. And
Yes.
do you remember when you found that passion? Like you said to yourself, I'm going to do this. Was that in high school?
It actually, it even a little step back in elementary school. Remember, and you're bringing out I remember it was like a foot race. Like it was maybe not even like maybe 30, 50 or 30 yards. I had to, was with the little kids, right? I was like 8 years old, and we had to run to the next, as I said, not very far, but I beat everyone. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Nice.
I can't, that feeling, like,
Yeah.
and and then in high school, like I found out, like, it's just the passion grew, if that makes any sense. It's just, but also to never rest on your laurels, always keep moving and keep striving to do better.
Right.
I think that's strive, because and that's how you become. And we never stop learning, right? That's why when I go for a run, I always try to think, okay, how can I write a better lead? How can I run a bit faster? How can I, do better stretches? Whatever the case may be, it's always striving. Every day you can always make it a better day by being the best you can, but also trying to, pass that finish line, go further. So
Right.
That's awesome. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's kind of like a metaphor for life, in general. It's like one of the things I've talked about in goal setting on my show and stuff like that, and I talk about the 3 P's, and in kind of when you want to do something. Like the first is the planning, right, or the preparation, right? Then it's the perseverance of actually doing it and getting through it, okay? And then at the end, it's you have the what you call it, when you finally finish that goal, or you finish that the goal or the finish line, okay? And then you have this kind of happiness, basically, this this whole thing. And what I wanted to ask you is, what, like, if someone wants to run, and let's say they want to do a marathon or something like that, they want to do some kind of thing, and they had never done it before. They're training, they're in preparation, they're that type of thing. What kind of mindset? because I know you train runners, you've instructed runners and that type of thing. What is the mindset that you talk to them about and that they need to have? Because obviously, you know, I mean, I've done little 3Ks, you know, years ago, and I was deathly afraid of doing it because I was like, am I going to make it? Am I going to pass out? You know, that type of thing. So, but what kind of mindset do you talk to them about as far as getting through it and kind of getting to the finish line?
I think it's taking baby steps.
Mm.
Being very patient with yourself. If you're going to learn a new instrument, you have to start somewhere. And that's what I tell in my clinic. I mean, I'm still teaching Learn to Run, but I've taught marathon. You know, people want to learn the marathon, to half marathons, and I always say you have to do your homework, but baby steps, you'll get there. If you, not only that, but listening to your body is the key. But following a proper running program and not going outside that program. Don't do double back workouts. Give yourself some rest. Recovery is important. But yes, baby steps, and believe in yourself. As I said at the top of the show, it's all about believing in you, that you can do it with the proper tools. And that is the program, taking in baby steps, and having a mentor or an instructor who is going to take you to the finish line safely, and that you do want to continue on, you know, for another event. Maybe you're doing a 5K, then you want to do a 10K, and then the marathon. Yeah,
discipline, right? I mean, you have to really have a tremendous amount of discipline. But I think also you mentioned getting a mentor, and I think a lot of people don't see the value of a mentor. You know, like they don't understand that you save so much time by bringing someone in that is already they've already walked that walk, they can talk that talk, and they can actually help you avoid the pitfalls of whatever it is, and there's so much information online right now, that people can get lost in a sea of trying to figure out how to do anything, so finding a good support system, I think what you said is really, really super vital to that, I think. Absolutely. So I had one question I wanted to talk about. We had mentioned earlier about we talked about talent and we talked about skill, but there's another element which George touched upon with the mindset, right? So when you're running, you said that there's that moment of like where you can really start thinking. You start getting more clear. And isn't that amazing? Because you're doing something you're passionate about. The body is moving, the blood flow is moving. It's like when I'm playing guitar or I'm doing something that I love to do, I suddenly get more creative, which kind of makes sense, right? Because I mean, you're doing a creative thing, so you're operating at that level. How long do you think that you run? And you said 5 minutes, and then you go into like that runner's high kind of thing.
Not 5 minutes, but it takes it depends on how long you've been running for. So for me, it would be like almost an hour where I feel like I'm having this out of body experience. Is when you push your body and you're letting yourself run freely, and sometimes not running with a watch or an app. That is, I've been doing this now. I for a while.
Interesting.
I actually wrote a piece on it, running watch list, like just listening to your body and going and not thinking about just you and the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the trail or
right.
And I feel like that's when I start getting my most creative self.
Yeah.
And it's just such a high, right? A runner's high. Yes. And
it's so interesting. It's so interesting because when you leave the watch or the technology away, then it's just really you and your run. It's you and yourself. You're not really bound to this thing that's timing you or that you have to kind of look at. You're just doing your run. If it's an hour, if it's an hour and a half, it is what it is. That's wonderful. I mean, I grew up in New York, so I did a lot of running, but that was that was more not my choice. So I wanted to talk to you earlier. Before we went live, you mentioned something about how everyone has a piece of the pie.
Yes.
You know, and I think in this world of social media, and you know, people get really discouraged when they see so many people doing so many things, but there's room for everyone.
Yes.
You know, can you talk a little bit about that and your philosophy on that?
Yes, I think when you think that way, because everybody has a story to tell, everybody has talent, is knowing what your talents are. And when before we went live, you know, everyone, there is a piece of pie for everyone, because we can only be you. I can't be someone else. I can only, and that's what I mean. I'm using the word sells or promotes yourself. You can have a podcast, and it's really inspiring to take inspiration from others. But in the end, if you are you, no one can copy you. They can only, and that is the real the nugget, if you will. Like, that's how you become somebody else. Don't be afraid to be who you are. Be organic, be authentic, because when you're authentic, that's when you're going to get more people engaging with you. And I think that is the key. That's how I think.
Yeah.
And there's room for everyone.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I love helping others, because when I help others, I become more inspired.
Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I've had conversations, and I think, George, we've talked about this a little bit too, where you know, someone has a product or they're doing something and they're afraid to put it out because they think that somebody's going to take their idea. And I remember just thinking, like, it doesn't matter if they take your idea. You know what I mean? It's still you doing it. So even if they're doing the same exact thing, they're completely different people. It's never going to be what you can bring to the table. And that is really important for people to understand, that everyone is an individual, not only on their creative, you know, but they're also on who they are, who they are and who they want to communicate. That's always going to be those things, you know. So that's a wonderful way of looking at it.
It also goes along with a little bit what we talked about last week, was about you know, finding your own voice, right? We talked about finding your own voice, and one of the things I had mentioned was that a lot of people, let's say they're, you know, want to be good at a podcast, or they want to be good at whatever it is, and they're looking at someone else to be like them, because let's say they have more followers, or they're more popular, so I need to be like them in order to get that popularity. And the whole point is, that's the whole thing, is you need to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I always say that everybody will find an audience, everybody will have an audience at some point, okay? Because you know, it's interesting, because I gravitate, like when I listen to podcasts or shows or whatever, I gravitate more towards people who are similar to me and more low key, versus the one who's, you know, out, you know, all excited and all that. After a while, I'll turn them off, because the personality just doesn't match with me.
Right.
But you know, so it's interesting. But my voice, for me, I'm more of a low key type of person in general, and that's, you know, I can't be anything other than what I am. And I think it fits that whole thing of be yourself. And, you know, people will eventually find that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And you mentioned about you love helping people, and that's one thing we talk about a lot here as well. And you do a lot with not only your shows, but as well as your teaching. Talk a little bit about helping others and how that actually, you said how it makes you feel so good.
Well, it inspires me, and I feel like when you help someone, you are giving back, because I receive from other people.
Correct.
I've been so thankful, grateful, and I always say every day, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, because I've had people in my arena who've helped me create the show, get the show off the ground, the pilot. So now it's about paying it forward.
That's right.
And I feel that is important, you know, to help others. People are coming to you for help.
Right.
And in the end, you know, it always, not that you expect it, but it'll, you know, come back twofold. And then first thing you know, they'll bring in their followers, or if that is the case, and then you end up creating a organic network.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And they can hire you. You do not know what people's stories are.
Exactly.
You know, you never know. So that's how I look at it, being open as well.
That's right. And I mean, I think that's how we connected, because I saw your content
Yes.
on Instagram, and I was like, wow, she's awesome. And I know we were also connected with Leslie as
Yes.
well. And I said, oh, so I'm so grateful and thankful that you agreed to come on the show, because I saw a couple of your interviews and I thought, well, that's exactly what we're doing. That's
Yes.
really fits in so well.
Yes.
And this is the networking that you're talking about. I mean, it's really giving your time to really, bring to the table what you actually can help others with, and then bring others in that they can
Hmm.
go out and then help others, and then that just creates this wonderful synergy
Yes.
of help, throughout the universe. Little
Yeah. And I
dramatic.
and I just like to add, if when you're authentic, I mean, people know who you are. They're not,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
treat your guests and the listeners, the viewers,
That's true.
that they're experts. That you never assume anything. So
Right.
Yeah.
you give the information, and it's up to them to decide. But it's when you have that approach, I think
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely,
Absolutely.
being authentic is like a key thing. I think as we get more and more into people being able to consume this type of content, I think people are getting better and better at seeing the BS from the authentic, somebody that's authentic. you
Right.
know,
Right.
and
Right.
and I think it's really obvious now that you have to be sincere, you have to be authentic, you have to be there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I think all those things really play into being successful in the current industry that we're in. I love
mhm.
that. So let me see, George, you have a question? Because I
Yeah.
have a
So
question.
when did you make the decision that you wanted to do a TV show, and how did it come about?
How it came about, I was working in print media
Okay.
again, because what happened was they did restructuring at the
Mm,
paper, and
mm.
then I went back to school, studied multimedia. Then I got rehired, and then
Oh,
Right.
first thing you know, budget cuts. So
Mm,
I was typing, I was working on my column called A Runner's Mind. It's still going live, Stronger Legs, if you will.
right.
And I thought, why don't I create a TV show? And I'm thinking, when I had an epiphany. I thought, oh, I'll create a show, and I'm thinking, how am I going to? Oh yeah, I used to do TV. Why not? So I approached
yeah.
Doug,
Right.
and he said, send me a proposal, and that's what happened. It took 2 years to get off the ground,
Wow.
Wow.
but I kept at it, and the pilot was. Just say the pilot. It was horrible. But you have to start somewhere. But that's it.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
how it
Exactly.
started.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that, and it's such a key thing about having to start somewhere. I show this picture of me when I first started. George and I have been doing this 2 years, but I was doing it for a
Yes.
year before by myself during the incident that occurred on the planet. So that's what I call it. But this is the picture that I show because that was the first episode, and
Wow.
then one of the last
Wow.
one. So it basically just shows that you just do it because you have a passion, your intentions in the right place.
Hmm.
You want to actually help people, but you don't have everything in place yet.
Hmm.
And you
Right.
start working it, and I figured out, okay, this camera is blurry. I should probably get another camera. I should probably lose the head, the huge. I look like Princess Leia with those things on, so get rid of that. And then the cowboy hat just came in to play and then I moved to Nashville, so the cowboy hat
It's
actually fits in.
nice. Yes.
Thank you. So, but there is a process there.
Yes.
So as you were, a lot of people get discouraged though.
Hmm.
That first pilot comes out, and if it doesn't do what you expect it to do, you can get very discouraged. Where did you ever feel like maybe this is something? How did you deal with that part of it?
Well, I mean, I was not, I was disappointed. And I
Right.
thought, I have to keep at it.
Good.
I just have to keep at
Yeah.
it, like with my
Hmm.
running, just keep doing it. And that's how
Yeah.
I thought of my running.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the way it is. It's not forever, it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And if I approach the right people who can help me, constructive criticism is great.
Mhm.
You learn, every day we're learning,
Right.
but also actually cleaning off or getting rid of toxic relationships or toxic
Ooh.
people.
Oh, that's huge. Huge.
You hit a very, very, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what helped. That
Yeah.
mindset, just saying,
Yeah.
okay, just dust it off, keep going.
Yeah, I do definitely want to talk about that briefly, just because it's being in entertainment and just in this industry, there is a toxic people just seem to, I don't know, they seem to find their way in, and somebody just doesn't see them until they've already destroyed relationships and stuff. I mean, I think innately, I think we do have the ability to spot somebody that's toxic, but maybe they have a high position, or maybe they have people protecting them, or maybe people just don't even see it, and you're the only one that sees it.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to someone out there that feels that they're surrounded by, or at least has someone toxic in their environment?
I think for me, when I first meet someone, I'm very cautious because it's about building relationships. It's about trust. It's about knowing the person's intentions. And that's how I look at it, and that's how I deal with it, because I've been like that all my life. I'm quite cautious, and it's not like I need to know to build a relationship. And therefore, it can not only be me, it could be the other person on the other end.
Right.
So take it slow, but your intuition. I always think when I don't listen to my intuition, guess what happens?
Yep.
Not good.
That's exactly
Not
right.
good.
That's exactly right.
So I listen to intuition, and I feel like, why? Why do I feel like writing that story? Why do I feel like doing that interview? Why do I feel like going there for a run? When I listen, it turns out the best. So that's what I try to do, my gut and taking my time building the relationship. And there is toxic in the entertainment world and everywhere really, but it's just how you navigate, and also using EI, your emotional intelligence. I think that is really important right now, because we're overwhelmed by texts, emails, everything.
Very true.
So,
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. I love that. You mentioned something that was interesting. I'm sorry, George. Did you have something?
Oh, good.
I was just gonna ask. Sorry.
That's okay. Take over the show, John.
And I talk a lot. I'm
no, not as much as he. Not as much as
you're great. You're awesome. Now I lost my train of thought. No, we were talking about having that innate ability to kind of like sense, when something is not going well. Suppressive people that are in the environment and stuff like that. But what I do want to say is that the entertainment industry is really wonderful.
Yes.
And I think it gets a bad rap because I think the media puts up people that are either insane, but they want to capture the attention because they want to sell cereal, or they want to sell soda or McDonald's, whatever they want to sell. And they'll put up something that it just gets people's attention, and it may not be good, but overall, 99% of the people that are in entertainment, that probably a lot of people really don't know their names, are really wonderful.
Yes.
It's a really wonderful industry. So, I want to kind of change that narrative and try to get people to understand that, no, the entertainment is wonderful. People love it. And the world needs artists. The world needs entertainment,
Yes.
But we have to kind of like move away from the idea that the entertainment industry is just full of like all these crazies, because they are there, but it's not the majority. It's actually quite the opposite. It's the minority, that are cuckoo, George and I are part of the cuckoos.
but again, we have the passion, right? We have the passion to create, right? And that is the thing, like, and we talked about it again on past shows, that we're all artists because we all create, whether it's music, whether it's creating a schedule, whether you're creating a running routine or whatever it is, but we're all artists. So it's a great thing, and the ability to create is just an incredible gift. And what I wanted to ask you to kind of piggyback on that was, you're interviewing all these artists now on your show, and these amazing actors and musicians. What is it about these folks that fascinates you?
I think it's how they got started, their passion. Like,
Mhm.
it's, and I feel every interview I learn so much.
Right.
And sometimes it's like you would do, you have your questions ready, but then it turns because they said
Yeah.
something interesting.
Yes.
Right.
And but it's like giving them, the show is a vehicle for them to come on and talk about whatever, their movie or their
Mhm.
music. And that's what I do. It's all about the guests.
Right.
And I don't have a favorite guest. I don't know if you're going to ask me that, but I find everybody has
Yeah.
a story to tell, and you learn. And the industry is exciting, and it's and I know I just said that, but you learn so much from people. And
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question,
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And us having done this now for a few years, we would never ask who's your favorite guest, because we totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons why we do this, is to give a platform to artists and to people that are, making it happen and influencing others, and giving them that platform, but also validating them as artists. But I wanted to. The interesting thing about what we all do is that you're in front of someone that is doing something that maybe you don't do, or you don't know that much about, but wow, am I fascinated by what they do. So like,
Yeah.
we'll meet someone that's like, I'm not a drummer, I'm a guitar player, but we'll have a drummer on. George is a drummer. So now we have that kind of covered. George is into fitness. So we have fitness, and so we have this wonderful opportunity to not only bring people in, but also to learn from so many different industries and so many
Yes.
different levels of life, and people who are, and their journey, what you said earlier, is so on point. Like, it's fascinating to see how they started, and what was that
Mhm.
journey like, and how it brought them to here. So I love that element of it. I wanted to George, do you have a question? Because I have
No,
some.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So when did it when you had the running show first, right? Run with it
Yes.
first. And then at what point did you decide that you wanted to go and interview musicians and artists?
Well, in 2005, I started a column called A Runner's Mind, and I was interviewing actors, creatives, but they were following a healthy lifestyle, And I thought, I'll keep doing this. And then I had the running show, and then the people at the TV show or the broadcast said, "Why don't you create a music show?"
Mhm.
Because they already it was interviewing
Ah.
artists,
Right.
and I thought, hey, why not? I love music. I'm not a musician like both of you, but I love music, and I love giving the vehicle, like serving and making
Yeah.
sure that they have a story to tell and
Yeah.
promote themselves, and that's where I come in. And so I thought, why not? And then the closing act, I don't get credit naming the show the closing act. It was Nick Gilder, because he sings the song Roxy Roller, because I initially had it the opening act.
Mm.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, so the closing act, that's how it got its name. So,
Oh,
yeah. And it just went from there, because I had a bit of experience from the column and then the run with it. And then now, it's music and entertainment. So I have filmmakers on the show, and
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes I think that people that love music are so important, because George and I talk to a lot of people that make music, but the ones that are consuming it are the ones that love
Yep.
music. And you
Yes.
don't have to be a musician to love music. And perfect example is Clive Davis. I mean, the guy he's not really known as like a musical musician, but man, does he love music to the point that he's discovered some of the most incredible artists of all time.
Mm.
So that's so fantastic. Um, who's your favorite guest? I'm just kidding.
Well, I do. It's really, it's.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. No, I'm just teasing. No, but I love that you're able to do this, and you're able to really bring to light all these artists, and also when you mentioned about the platform, there's so many platforms to go on, but they're not that many that actually can bring somebody on to validate them the way you do.
Right.
And
Right,
that to me is like really where that's the joy of someone coming on your show.
And I feel like it gives them an opportunity, as I said, to promote themselves, to it could be an event or a concert that's coming up and they need promotion. And what better way is to come on a show like your show or my show and talk about it. And that's when things happen. And not, it just helps. Publicity is great.
Yeah.
But I have people who are up and comers on the show. I have established musicians. So it's for everyone who wants to come on the show.
Yeah.
I'll do my research. So research.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a good thing to talk about, research, because I do a lot of that myself, and I make sure that I vet everyone, make sure that I look at what they do, and because there has been times in the past when I've made a mistake of just thinking that someone, because they have maybe a lot of followers or something, would fit in. Right. And it turned out that they didn't really, it wasn't what I was thinking, and it's not to say that they didn't bring any value or they don't have any talent or skill or whatever, but I make sure that when I bring and George too, when we bring somebody onto the show, that they're going to bring that energy of wanting to help others, and that to me is like really a crucial part of it. I'm not really that interested in somebody that's just going to, well, this is me and I'm great, and and which is fine, because we want to validate everyone, but when someone comes to the table with wanting to help, that to me is beautiful.
Absolutely. I don't know if you found this when you were interviewing folks, but because John's known me all my life and we were kids. I was never a person who would have thought I would have been doing something like this at all.
No way.
Okay, because I was always been a very introverted person. Just to have these types of conversations in a public forum is foreign to me. So it was a lot of practicing and a lot of stumbling to do this type of stuff. But what I found in interviewing folks, and I'm wondering if you find this, is that you really, when you hear their stories and what they've gone through, it's almost like therapy, really. Because you learn about yourself as well.
Yes.
And you're like, holy cow. And, this person went through what I went through, or this person is going through what I went through, or I'm trying to reach the goal that this person reached, that type of thing. Do you find that you really, after you interview someone, that you sit down and you're like, wow, it really made me think?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I feel too that once you establish you make the guests feel comfortable is when they're more open.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you can share
Right.
share information, you can have a great conversation. And yes, when I leave the interview and I feel like, wow, this is so inspiring for me.
Yes.
And I learned a lot. It wasn't just about and then what I really liked I find refreshing is when sometimes the guest interviews you, because we get into that place that is like, wow, they know how to bring it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it becomes such a wonderful experience.
It really does. And George is right. We've learned and we've met such incredible people in the last 2 years. We never thought we'd be doing this like this. This started off sort of as a sort of like a fluke. We wanted to talk about Star Trek, and that was our.
That's how it started. Yeah.
Our first 15 episodes were just about two geeks talking about Star Trek, and while we were interviewing a few of the guests that were some of them have been on Star Trek and some of the films and stuff, we realized we kept going into other areas of life, and we thought, you know what, we should just interview just artists and
Nice.
and opinion leaders and people that are really making it happen, and it brought us here. So this is really wonderful. I just want to bring up someone, Brian Pollock says collaboration is key. Great show. Thank you, Brian, for checking out.
Absolutely.
And yeah, collaboration is key. I mean, this is part of why what you were saying is such an important thing to have, to make sure you check people out and you kind of use your instincts to make sure that you're connecting and collaborating with someone that's not gonna, unfortunately waste your time, which has happened sometimes. Life suckers.
Well, I'm glad you have a show because I wouldn't be here. This is wonderful.
Right.
Love your show.
I'm glad you have a show, because then I can invite
That's
you.
it. Absolutely.
Yeah, we all have shows. Everyone should have a show. You should have
Everyone
a
should
show.
have a show. Yes.
Everyone. This is awesome. So now I want to talk a little bit about where people can find your show, and I want to just quickly show on this, make sure this is correct, right? Run with it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. So they can find your show there. They can also get in contact with you if anyone has any questions or about anything. Or and by the way, if anybody has any questions right now and you're watching live, please shoot them in there. We're definitely would love to answer some questions. Christine would love to answer some questions. Well, I'm not answering for her. She said earlier she would like to answer questions. But yeah, so when people reach out to you, do you get a lot of questions about running mostly, or about interviewing or writing?
You know what? I would say it's more about running. I mean, it's nice to say, well, how do I start a show? I mean, I'm teaching at BCT, how to, freelance producing, and that's wonderful. I love it. And yeah, so it's just been an incredible journey, and we keep learning and keep improving the shows. And it's just, I love what I do.
That's great. And thank you, by the way, because I know you did invite me to one of your classes, and that was so much fun and so many great questions. I had a ball.
Yes.
Do you teach that? Is that something that you teach regularly?
Well, every Monday.
Okay.
And I finished in April, I believe, back in the fall. But yes, it was wonderful to have you as a guest, John. It was they really enjoyed having you.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and they asked questions that I really had to think about. So, wait a second.
Well, everything's automatic, right? Sometimes you just do it automatically. You don't really think about it.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I think 99% of what we do here is really natural conversation that we're having because we're interested in who we're talking to. I don't think we've ever really been stumped, especially being interviewed or interviewing someone. Sometimes you'll have an interview, and you probably have experienced this, having interviewed so many people, that maybe the interviewer is not experienced in being interviewed. So their questions, we talked about this earlier, George. Sometimes they answer their question like, well, tell me a little bit about, did you always like music? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on, let me get my book and start going through questions. But that challenge of it almost makes it really exciting too. Because now you have to really kind of play
bring the energy, right? But if you send propose questions and really, could you elaborate a bit further? And then sometimes it's an icebreaker. Sometimes you feel kind of shy, or you just don't know.
Exactly.
And then you come alive afterwards.
Yeah.
It's just
it's really part of the job of someone who's interviewing, to make the guest feel comfortable and want to share. So that's key. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up and what you're working on.
Yes, well, I'm always interviewing, which is great. And so I have the 2 shows right now. They're going to be sent off before, the both shows have to be in before the 9th of every month, I should say.
Oh,
So
okay.
2 shows, plus my shows now are live streaming. They just started live streaming, which is
That's
really
great.
great on
Nice.
Apple. My podcast, I love my podcast. That's on Spotify, Amazon. But yes, just really, I love teaching, and and nothing really. It's just I just keep going. Like Forrest Gump,
Excellent.
you just
Right.
keep.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Exactly. The keep going part is the part that sometimes you have to kind of like stop for a second and kind of, first of all, you have to enjoy.
Yes.
I live in Tennessee. I never thought I'm a Puerto Rican from the Bronx. I don't know what happened, but I ended up in Tennessee. And sometimes I'm driving around and I have to like realize, and I see the mountains and beautiful lakes, and I'm literally just driving home, and I have to stop for a second because in my head I'm thinking of the next thing. I have a show tonight, or I have this to do, or I have that. But I have to kind of take a moment to enjoy the process and enjoy the journey that I'm on, because that's part of it as well.
Yes. And it's like running. That's why running, as I said earlier, I go running a lot, because that's where I find my time to just recharge my batteries. But also too, it's important, like self-care, right? Which is taking breaks, taking, eye breaks from your computer. Just walk away from it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's hard to do with technology, right? That's why, as I said, I run watch lists, right? I feel like leave the technology at home. I don't need it right now.
Yes.
And some days I do, right? Of course, but it just helps.
Yeah, and I try really hard on the weekends to not go to the computer, now I have my phone, so obviously the phone is what it is, but just to sit in front of the computer, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go there for the weekend. And last weekend I was actually successful. I actually did that.
Yay, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a good I wasn't home though, I was doing other things, but so that might have been a reason. But anyway, so let me just show your site again on the screen there. We're at almost an hour now. I want to start, just finding out, like, one of the things that we usually ask our guests, is at the end of the show. We know that the last couple of years have been kind of rough for a lot of people, and there are people out there that are still, trying to figure out how to get out or try to do something or be motivated to follow their passion. Do you have a few pieces of advice that you can actually give to anyone out there?
Yes, you mean like after the post-pandemic?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think too, it's an opportunity to, change up your activities, right? Some people, like I know, were no longer runners, but they chose another activity. Could be snowshoeing if there's winter, or it could be cycling. And also too is, don't be afraid to reach out to talk to people about, I like to start something, but I don't know what at this point. I find that when you are fearless, then things happen. I feel like, there's always something to learn. So choose a different activity, maybe find a mentor, right? And I also think too, travel, now that, we can travel.
Yeah.
I also think too is that being around people is very positive, right? That support as well. So
it's very important to be able to find someone to, reach out to people, because it was a lot of people were very lonely, obviously. And that was actually one of the reasons why I started the show, was because I was sort of like I'm home now. I don't know what to do. So I started this this thing. And but it's been so helpful, not just for me, but for those that have watched it and said, oh, wow, that was really good. I'm glad you're doing this. And it motivates others to kind of take a little bit more action and responsibility as well, to move forward. But yes, thank you so much for that. I love that. So Christine, this has been like such a pleasure to have you on the show. We'd love to have you back again, because one of the things that I think we didn't cover as much was the actual fitness portion of running, when it actually does and fitness. So we'd love to have you back sometime,
Oh,
Yes.
and we'll dive into the fitness portion and even more. So we talk about interviewing, and there's just so much that we can talk about here.
yes. Well, I want you back. I want you on my show. I was going to say on my back on my show, but come on my show. It feels like we've done this before. This is
I know,
how
right?
comfortable I feel. This is how comfortable I feel. And I
Oh,
love
wow.
the question.
Good. Absolutely.
It's been a blast. I really
Oh,
enjoy
great.
it.
Awesome.
really,
Awesome.
It's fun.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Christine, thank you so much.
Yes.
Don't go away, actually. We're going to end the show real quick. We'll be right back, so please just hang on tight. Everyone, Christine Blanchette,
Yes.
thank you so much. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic stuff there.
that's why we do this. And
Yep.
week after week, we get so inspired, and I hope you're out there being inspired as well, because it really brings a lot of joy when we get the messages of how
Yes.
much you enjoyed the show. And Christine is definitely somebody that's very motivational and very inspiring. So we're really grateful that she took the time to spend with us, and it was very nice. I was going to play some music. It didn't play.
There you go. All right.
All right.
Nice soft music.
Chill out and end our show. But anyway, we want to just thank everybody for tuning in. Also, we want to remind everyone that we do have an anniversary show coming up on March 4th. It'll be our second wedding. George and I have been married now for 2 years. I think a lot of people don't really know how close we are. I said that because March is my wedding anniversary. It's 20 years.
Wow.
But March 4th, George and I are not married, but we will be celebrating our anniversary.
Listen, I could barely take him for 2 years. His wife take him for 20. So
Yeah, she's an amazing woman.
What a
But
soul.
yes. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful week ahead. We'll see you all next week, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Counterpartsshow.com, and we'll see you. Take care. And as always,